Welcome to the channel. When it comes to emergency preparedness, there's some bare minimums that everybody, whether they're a prepper or not, should have covered. And one very good resource for this is the Red Cross Survival Kit list. It's a great place for new or non-preppers to start out, and it's also nice for those of us that are more experienced because it can give us some good reminders. Maybe we get kind of caught up in one or two aspects of preparedness, and we overlook something pretty basic. So today we're going to take a look at the Red Cross's survival list, talking about what it does well along with any changes that more experienced or serious preppers may want. To make the first thing on the Red Cross's survival list is water, and they recommend having 1 gallon per person per day. That, of course, may not be enough if you use some of that water for food prep or if you're dealing with very hot temperatures. Then, cleaning and hygiene tasks will require some water as well, so you probably want to aim a little higher than that. But one thing I do like about their recommendation is that they break it up into having a supply for an evacuation and then also a supply for sheltering in place at home. For their evacuation supply, I do think around 3 days is probably pretty reasonable. That's what they suggest. But when it comes to their sheltering in place supply of 2 weeks, I think that may be probably a little on the low end. I would feel much better having at least a month. But once again, this is just a basic starter list. Bottled water can work well for short-term use, but you do want to rotate through it regularly. I, for example, like to keep a package of it in our car whenever we go on a longer road trip in case we get stuck in traffic or we break down for one reason or another. Then, for home use, I prefer portable water containers like Aquitaine and military water cans. These are much more durable than water bottles, and they allow you to store water for a longer period of time. Then, if you have enough space, you can always invest in larger barrels or a rainwater harvesting system. And then, don't overlook last-ditch water storage options like aquapods and collapsible water containers. If you know that something bad is headed your way, then you can fill these up and they'll help stretch out your water storage. The next thing on the Red Cross's survival list is food. They specify that it should be easy to prepare, and like with their water, they suggest having a 3-day evacuation supply and a 2-week shelter-in-place supply, which once again a little bit low for my liking, but still a good place to start. And when it comes to easy-to-prepare shelf-stable foods, things like peanut butter, crackers, and canned fruit will have a reasonably long shelf life and don't require additional water or a camp stove to prepare. Then, energy bars and granola bars can be good options as well. But if you want to increase your food storage options, I strongly recommend picking up a cheap camp stove. It always blows my mind when these lists, including this one and the one from FEMA, leave off-grid cooking options. Things like butane stoves and propane stoves are easy to find, easy to use, and you can also use them to boil water, which would be really important in some situations. Having one will allow you to prepare dry staples like beans and rice, and then heat up canned soups, chili, and vegetables. And even though all commercially canned foods are technically safe to eat straight out of the can, it's going to be more enjoyable if you heat them up, at least for most people. The next thing on the Red Cross's survival list is a flashlight, but I personally would want to have a flashlight and a headlamp. For your flashlight, getting something with a fair amount of power will allow you to illuminate a larger area and see longer distances. Then an inexpensive headlamp like this one would allow you to work hands-free without producing so much light that its reflection blinds you. Then after that, the Red Cross recommends having a battery-operated or hand-crank radio in your survival kit is essential. I've had that Midland ER 310 that I just showed for a couple of years now, and, overall, it's pretty good. It'll pick up AM, FM, and NOAA frequencies, so you should be able to receive any sort of emergency broadcast, no matter how they transmit it. It also has a lithium-ion battery that can be recharged using its hand crank or built-in solar panel, or it can be plugged into a USB port or charging brick. The only thing I don't like about it is that its phone charging feature isn't that great. The battery seems to drain much faster when you're charging other devices than it probably should, so I would not use it as your sole means of charging up other devices. Along with your flashlight and radio, the next thing on the Red Cross's survival kit list is extra batteries. You should definitely take this into account whenever you're choosing devices to put in your emergency kit. While it's fine to use something like this flashlight that requires either a special proprietary battery or an expensive CR123A as part of your EDC, You may want to have a backup option that uses a more common, less expensive battery type like AA or AA. Those kinds of batteries are going to be a lot easier to find and cheaper to stockpile. Rechargeable batteries are a very good option, especially if you have some sort of generator. Having those will save you money in the long run, and even if you don't have some sort of generator, you could use those for daily use and then save your disposable batteries for emergencies. The next thing on the Red Cross's survival kit list is a first aid kit. This should be set up to deal with wounds of all sizes. Small bandages, antiseptics, and antibiotic ointments are things that you should always include. But don't forget other things like gauze pads and rolled gauze. These will help you control bleeding and prevent infection if you have to treat a larger wound. And if we're dealing with a disaster, keep in mind that you may have to deal with that situation for several days before you can get any sort of real help. So you want to have enough of those supplies that you can change out those dressings regularly to prevent them from getting infected. Then you also want to have things like nitrile gloves to keep things sanitary, and then also some simple over-the-counter pain relievers to help comfort the people that are injured. Cross also recommends having a 7-day supply of any medications and medical supplies that you use regularly, and those can include both prescription and non-prescription medications. Like me, for example, I need to take allergy medication daily, especially this time of year because it's getting warmer, and we're starting to have things bloom a little bit early. So if I look like I have been crying in this video, I have not. It's just my stupid, stinking allergies. Moving on from medical needs, the next thing on the Red Cross's list is a multi-purpose tool. And if you want a decent but inexpensive option, the Leatherman Wingman is a good choice. It has all the tools that you'd expect a basic multi-tool to have, like pliers, Phillips screwdrivers, flathead screwdrivers, can openers, and then a knife blade. If you want something a little nicer, then the Leatherman Wave and Victorinox Swiss tool both have all the basics covered and add other tools like a wood saw and file. And while a multi-tool is a good thing to have, I'd recommend having a wider range of tools. You'd be able to use them at home for odd jobs, and they'd be a lot easier to use than a multi-tool. Then, one thing that I noticed was absent from this list is a way to shut off like your water and your gas utilities, because in some situations, that's definitely something that you want to be able to do. The next thing that the Red Cross includes on their survival kit list is sanitation and personal hygiene items. Basic examples of these can include toothbrushes and toothpaste, hand sanitizer, soap, and feminine hygiene products. Personal wet wipes will be a much better choice than toilet paper if you lose water utility, since they'll do a better job cleaning. And also you can use them to wipe yourself down if you can't take a shower. Then, other things like heavy-duty trash bags and sanitizing wipes can help keep your home clean. But one sanitation and hygiene item that a lot of people overlook is pesticides. Personal pesticides that you spray on you or your clothing can help protect you from mosquitoes and ticks, while others can prevent infestations within your home. The next thing on the Red Cross is another crucial item on your survival list is personal documents. These can include personal medication lists, personal medical information like allergies, your blood type, birth certificates, insurance documents, and also things like the lease agreement for your home or apartment. If you own your home, then the deed is essential. It's best to keep these documents in some sort of waterproof bag. But one thing I'd recommend doing is, in addition to that, also try to have digital backups for as many things as possible. Most things you can go online and download, especially things like insurance documents. You can scan anything that you can't find online. If you put those on a USB thumb drive, then you can have a backup just in case the hard copies get destroyed. Then after that, the Red Cross recommends having your cell phone and a way to charge it. These, of course, would be useful for pretty much anything except an EMP. I recently picked up this Red Cross branded crank charger, and to be honest with you, this is not my first option when it comes to a backup power supply. The reason why is you're going to have to crank a lot, even to get like maybe a 1% difference in something like a cell phone battery. So I think a better option for most people is going to be a USB battery bank coupled with a set of portable solar panels. Something like this Anchor battery bank should be able to charge most cell phones at least twice. And folding panels like these will be able to collect a lot more energy than the tiny panels integrated into some power banks. A setup like that will be able to charge your cell phone and any other USB devices like flashlights, LED lanterns, or radios. The next thing on the Red Cross's survival kit list is family and emergency contact information. Within your home, you want to have a list of any family members' numbers and any emergency service numbers that you may need in a prominent location like on your refrigerator, preferably laminated so it doesn't get damaged. Beyond that, you want every member of your family to have some sort of small laminated card with those numbers on it as well. Even young kids should have them in something like a backpack, because if you get separated from them for one reason or another, then anybody who's trying to help them could use that card. It just gives you more options and more ways to be reunited. And if you're wondering, where in the world am I going to get anything laminated? You can find little small laminating machines and laminating sleeves for not a whole lot of money. You could use it for this and then also for other things like any topo maps that you print off. Another thing that they recommend is having extra cash is really important, and when doing this, be sure to have it in small denominations, like 5s and 10s. This will prevent you from having to spend too much money on something small. For instance, if you only have a $100 bill, people probably aren't going to be making change if there's, like, a big disaster going on. They didn't specify an exact amount, but usually $500 is a reasonable amount for emergency purposes. And aside from cash, you may also want to have a few rolls of quarters on hand as well. The next thing on the Red Cross's survival kit list is an emergency blanket. While simple Mylar blankets are useful, I'd recommend stepping it up a little bit and picking up a survival bivvy. These will do a much better job containing your body heat, and they can also be used as a sleeping bag liner. Both those and Mylar blankets work well in things like vehicle kits or EDC bags. Then, for home use, having some extra wool blankets or sleeping bags will help you stay warmer if the power goes out during the winter months. Then, the last item on their main list is a local map, and I'd recommend picking up a regular road map along with some topographic maps of your area. A regional or state road map can help you identify different evacuation routes, while topo maps can help you identify other things like small water sources or geographical features. You can order physical copies of topo maps online, or you can print them off for free on the USGS website. They'll just be a little bit smaller than normal if you do it that way. And beyond the main list, the Red Cross also recommends some additional items, the first of which being medical supplies like hearing aids and batteries, glasses, spare contacts, and syringes if you need those. And as somebody who wears glasses, I can tell you from personal experience that you do want to have some sort of backup vision correction method if your primary method goes down. And that's especially true if your eyesight is bad, because you don't want to look like Velma from Scooby-Doo if the apocalypse happens. Next, they mention baby supplies like bottles, formula, baby food, and diapers. And one thing I always like to mention in these videos is that even if your baby is breastfeeding, you still want to have a backup supply of formula because you don't want to be in a situation where mom is no longer able to feed the baby for one reason or another, and then the baby goes down because of that. That would just be unimaginably terrible. They also recommend having games and activities for kids, which would be an absolute must if you want to stay sane, along with supplies for your pets like food, a leash, and a carrier for transporting them. Two-way radios are also on the list, along with an extra set of car and house keys. One item, though, that I think should be on the main list is a manual can opener. Given most multi-tools are going to have one, but if you're relying heavily on canned goods, you want to have extra ways to open those in case your primary method breaks or gets lost. Then after that, there's some other basic items like a whistle, N95 masks, matches, extra clothes, duct tape, and work gloves. But like the FEMA list, this one does leave some pretty important things off. So if you want to see survival gear that every prepper should have that's pretty affordable, then click here. Or if you want to see the 10 most important kinds of items that preppers should be stockpiling, then click here. Thank y'all for stopping by. Y'all have a good one.